And I do believe we're on now. So he hit the record button. Now we're going to start. So this is episode 4.
Yep. Nick can count.
To give a nice little disclaimer right up front, me and Steve do not presume to be experts in anything whatsoever other than who we are as human beings. And even that is questionable whether we're an expert at that or not. As well as whatever you hear on this podcast, whether you like it or you hate it, you feel free to comment on it. We will be saying things that may be offensive, may not be offensive. We will use some foul language because I have a tendency to use the F-bomb on a regular basis. What else can I give as a disclaimer?
I don't know. I will say I've been having some audio issues. So if you heard an echo in the last few episodes, I'm trying to deal with it. But
yeah, we're trying to make my microphone work, and maybe it's just what type of microphone I'm using. Hopefully we can kind of figure it out.
Nick's been sounding like he's talking into a tin can.
I know, right? And I know it was so entertaining. Let's pretend like that was a purposeful effect.
Yeah.
To make me sound like a robot.
I mean, you kind of are a robot.
Shush you.
So today, Nick wanted to talk about performing.
You always say Nick wants to talk about it. Not like we don't have conversations about topics prior to getting on the actual recording, but he always blames me for the topic.
So Nick wanted to talk about performing.
Wow.
And by performing, he means sexual acts.
Oh, my God.
In children's parks.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
There's a reason why we don't allow him to wear a trench coat anymore. By the way, Nick has this amazing performance he does. It's a one-man show that involves a bottle of Vaseline and several hot dogs.
Oh, God. You always got to bring up hot dogs. Oh, my God.
He loves hot dogs.
Well, I like eating hot dogs.
Yeah. And what he likes reverse eating hot dogs, too.
Oh, God.
Oh, I wish there was an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Oh, it's so horrible.
That is what I truly like to be.
Oh, my God. You're horrible.
Oh, and if I were an Oscar Mayer wiener.
All right, so
I would take it in anally.
Oh my God. So performance. I wanted to talk about performance. And the main reason why I wanted to talk about it is we've mentioned in previous episodes that me and Steve do acting in local community theaters, as well as we co-run an improv sketch comedy group based out of the town we're in. And we actually have rehearsal after this podcast.
Yes, with the normies.
With normies. Oh my God. So I wanted to talk about performance because it is kind of a thing for folks on the spectrum. We don't always behave the way people expect us to, and it is kind of sometimes hard for us to express ourselves. So in that regard, let's talk about how me and you both handle performing, being on a stage, doing improv, being able to, do whatever.
I learn like a good dog.
You learn
or like a chimp.
A chimp.
Yeah, through mimicry. So a lot of mammals.
So do I. I learned through mimicry.
No, it's actually not just mammals because birds will do this too, but a lot of animals will learn through mimicry. I was actually watching a show earlier today before we met up that had to do with the intelligence of pets and animals. And specifically, they were talking about there was this woman who taught a dog how to speak using buttons.
Uh-huh.
And each button had a certain word associated with it.
Uh-huh.
And the dog learned, she started with something simple, like a button that said outside. And the dog would step on the button when he wanted to go outside or actually it was a girl dog, but the girl dog would step on the button to go outside because she knew what the word outside meant, or that she knew what outside was associated with going outside.
Right.
So when she wanted to go outside, she'd step on the button and the button would say outside. And the owner, but then she slowly started making it more complex to the point where there was like 60 words, and the dog would start combining the words to say things to the owner. But anyway, the point is, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. The point is that performing,
you can condition any living creature to do something.
Right. Well, the part where it got more interesting with the dog was that the dog started making patterns, putting words together that on its own. So it started mixing words together that the owner didn't necessarily show it. So it knew certain words. So it's one step from just repeating what it heard to mixing multiple words together that the dog was able to associate. I'm not saying that the dog fully comprehends what it's doing, but it knew enough to like combine certain words together, which I thought was interesting.
I'll only be impressed when somebody teaches that dog how to press the buttons that say, bitch, make me dinner.
Well, there's that. Anyway, the point of it is, for me, when it came to acting, performing.
First, how
a
old
lot
were
of
you?
it.
How old were you the first time you did a performance of any type? Whether it be karaoke.
If I'm answering honestly, I was
acting.
probably 8 years old. So I was the first time I ever performed, I was in a church play as a kid. But I don't really consider that was technically the first time. But to me, I don't even like I didn't really know what I was doing.
I was in a first or second grade play where I played a fucking carrot. Got it. No, let's talk about adulthood here. When you're actually consciously making that choice to get up there and aware socially.
So the first thing I did was I was actually in a band, if you would consider that performing. I was a singer in a band in my early 20s, and I used to write my own music.
Okay. And how was it performing for you?
I was still very nervous back then, so my singing wasn't as good as it could have been. Because I was holding back. I was a little nervous. So I used to record a lot of music on my own back then. I used to use a program called Sony Acid. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No.
I don't know if they still make it, but back in the day, that was a music recording program. Or you could also, like, people mainly used it to mix electronic songs. So like dance music, electronic music, techno type stuff.
EDM?
Yeah, okay. Although I don't know if they called it EDM back then, but this was like early 2000s.
Okay. I used to call it techno, but
I was making my own music. Some of it was electronic. Some of it was me playing guitar, and I used to sing. But I did a lot of it by myself. When I started singing with a band, I was a lot more self-conscious about myself. So I didn't really start opening up performing-wise until I started doing karaoke. And it was actually mostly at Bobby's, which is a local bar that Nick and I frequent.
Yes. Bobby's place.
Yeah, they do karaoke there all the time. And actually, the same person I've been doing karaoke with for almost 10 years now, which is Justin.
Which, Just Incredible, the podcast, or Just in Time, is it called?
Just in Time.
Yeah, Just in Time podcast is a new podcast you can watch on Facebook. Feel free to tune in. It's Tuesdays at like 8 or 7 or something like that.
Yeah, they focus mainly on what it's like to work at a bar and working as an entertainer. So bar life, dealing with customers, issues.
That's what they advertised it as, but they talk about way more than
that. Talk about everything, but it's they try to touch on different things from the perspective of being like working with the public in a bar, or an entertainer, like being a DJ. Like I think one of the first things Justin talked about was just like some of the annoying things that people do when you're a DJ.
Yeah.
People. I've seen people be rude to him, and as someone who also like I host trivia now.
He works at a fucking bar. No shit.
I've had people be extremely rude to me while hosting trivia. Like I had a woman one night scream at me. I don't remember why now. It was something I was doing toxic trivia, so it was all like fucked up questions. And this woman got kicked out of the bar, and she started mocking me, like repeating what I was saying and mocking me while she was leaving. So I told her to get the fuck out on the mic in front of everybody, and then she flipped out and started swearing. And like
that's
whatever.
what people do.
But yeah, people are douchebags.
They can be, yes. So performing. So what when it comes to performing, like you did a karaoke a whole lot, and I'm messing with my mic, and I'm not really sure why I'm doing it while I'm talking to people, but I'm messing with my mic. And so you started performing karaoke, but
that kind of got me to open up quite a bit.
What got you into acting and improv? I mean, we kind of talked about this on a previous episode, but like in this regard, what drove you to want to perform in that way?
I didn't really start acting until other people kind of pushed me into it. I've always been somebody who was creative. Like for instance, when I was a teenager, I used to write musical parodies and perform them at school. I used to, I had a fake talk show when I was in high school, and I used to like do fake interviews with celebrities. I used to do comedy videos when I was a teenager as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was, but I did it for myself. I didn't share it with people. Was a difference. Like I did things and it was just my friends who would see it. I didn't like, it wasn't in front of a general audience or the public.
Right.
And one of the first funny videos I did, I actually posted on MySpace back in the day, and it was,
hi, Tom.
Tom. It was, do you remember the old iPhone commercials when the iPhone first came out? And they had these commercials and it played this weird song. It was like ding, 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 ding. And they had this thing where it said like, there's never been a phone that could do this or this. And they were showing off all the features of the iPhone.
Yeah.
So I made a parody right after that commercial came up. I made my own. It was a commercial for the Microsoft DOS phone. So I got the same song that they used in the Apple commercial. And I took a CRT monitor.
Yeah.
Like a tube monitor.
Yeah.
And I stretched the image to make it look like a phone. And the 3 buttons on the phone were Control, Alt, and Delete.
Okay.
And I basically did a parody of the same commercial.
Right.
Except at the end, when I said the Microsoft DOS phone, where they would say, introducing the iPhone.
Yeah.
It was introducing the Microsoft DOS phone. And then it went to a blue screen of death and had the crash sound, the Windows crash sound. So that was the first comedy video that I did.
Okay.
But as I was saying, I wasn't sharing it with the general audience. It was mainly to make my friends and I giggle.
Okay. So my first, because you brought it up, the first things we ever did recorded wise, the first thing I ever did was I was 19 or 20, something like that. It was the first time I was in a sketch comedy group. We were doing public access and we were doing sketches. And one of the first things we recorded was a really bad pseudo-racist joke about nacho cheese. And we recorded somebody running out of like a deli, like a shop, a bodega or something, running out holding a big wheel of cheese, and somebody, a shop employee, runs out of it after them and yells, "Nacho cheese! That's nacho cheese!"
Okay.
All right, it's a bad fucking joke. We thought it was funny. We were 20. What do we know?
Actually, you reminded me when I was a kid, if you want to go back even further, you know what a TalkBoy is?
No idea.
So do you remember Home Alone? I think it was Home Alone 2. And Kevin had that thing where he could record people and play it back.
Oh, all right.
That was a TalkBoy. It had a little microphone on it and a tape in it. You could record onto the tape and play it back.
A voice recorder?
It was kind of like a voice recorder, but it was a toy.
So it was a kid's version of a voice recorder?
Kind of.
Oh.
And it had a speaker on it, so you could play. Anyway, I had one of those, and I used to record songs on the radio.
Yeah.
And then make my own radio show with me as the host.
Oh.
But that was kind of another.
No wonder podcasts were such an appealing thing for you.
But as far as acting or performing, when it got into like improv and all that sort of thing, it was actually a few people that kind of pushed me into it. One being Mr. Tegan Flanders, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, the guy who started Funny Please, our first improv comedy group. And
when it came to your fiance as well, she also kind of pushed me into performing.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy Spaghetti kind of pushed me into doing theater.
You had to bring him up.
Well, he's part of it.
We didn't have to name him.
You brought me to. I think you dragged me to some auditions, but he did as well.
Yeah. So an assortment of people in your life got you to
kind of like
perform.
We're like, oh, we think you'd be good at acting. You should do theater. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing either, and I'm on the sixth show that I've done.
So it started out mostly as mimicry for me because I had no baseline. I tried to emulate other people, and I would say nowadays, it's where when I'm performing something, it's coming more from within rather than me mimicking.
Well, now that we're more confident,
I'm more confident. Yeah, I can draw from my own experiences rather than trying to imitate others.
I mean, to a degree, I think everybody kind of does that. They do a little bit of mimicry, but I think for folks like us, we really try to mimic what they show us. Yeah. I know for the first play I ever did, Dracula, that I did with my fiance and a friend of hers who was directing it. He would say, Nick, I want you to do this line this way. And I was always like, what do you mean? Can you show me? And I'd have him kind of do it, whatever action or line it was, have him do it and give me an example. And then I would just do what he just did. And he was like, well, you don't have to do it my way. Do it your way, but do it like that. And I'm like,
do it my way while doing it your way.
Yeah. How about I just do exactly what you just did? And so I spent the entire play kind of just doing what he told me to, with no modification, no change, no difference to it. I just kind of did. And I will say the plays that I did after that, though, I did feel more confident in what I was doing. And I felt more accepting of like choices I wanted to make. But I think also doing the improv with you and everybody else that we've done improv with has also gotten me to kind of understand that there are variations and there are ways to vary things a lot more.
So I already know what the answer is, but I want you to tell everyone else. What is one of the most difficult things for you that's related to your autism when it comes to acting and performing? Because I know, well, I think I know what you're going to say.
So what is one of the things that's more challenging about performing for me? To be honest, it's conveying emotion. Almost completely. It's conveying emotion to other people. Giving enough emotion, I guess I should say.
I thought you were going to talk about your proximity issues as it relates to...
I mean, proximity is a big deal. It's just like with theater itself, right?
Like I know you don't want to have to do any scenes where you have to kiss somebody.
I refuse to, actually. I have auditioned for 2 plays where that was a requirement, and I said no thank you to both of them. One play I got offered a role for. I showed up to rehearsal the first day, read through the script, and realized that I would have to kiss somebody. And I said, look, I'm not comfortable with that. And they were like, no, the kiss has to happen. And I said, okay, peace. Thank you very much. I'm not doing this. I'm very adamant about it. I do not want to kiss people. And everybody always makes the assumption that I don't want to kiss somebody in a play because I have a partner. It has nothing to do with my partner. It has everything to do with my level of comfort.
Well, also, I mean, as a man, you're supposed to just be happy with any sort of romantic or sexual attention you get.
Yeah, right. You're just supposed to accept because everybody assumes if you're a hetero male that you're just going to be okay with it all the time. Well, quite frankly, stop assuming I'm hetero.
But also, like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Like, for one, don't assume I'm fucking hetero. You never bothered to fucking ask. And 2, I'm not comfortable either way. Like, I don't want to get that close to anybody's face. We actually kind of covered this a little bit in the last episode too. But like, I do not like I'm uncomfortable with kissing people on the mouth. I'm uncomfortable with open mouth kissing. And so why would I want to kiss somebody on a fucking stage?
And for anyone who has open mouth kissed Nick, I apologize.
Well, you know why I'm uncomfortable, because I'm not very good at it, apparently.
Sure. So, with that being said, we primarily do improv and comedic types of performances, like roasting. I've dabbled in stand-up a little bit. What would you say are some of the advantages of being on the spectrum and doing performing or doing improv or doing comedy?
Well, I think one of the best advantages that me and you have opposed to other people is we don't have the same reservation or hesitation to just saying things. Like me and you personally, as human beings, Steve and Nick, we just say stuff. Like we have a lack of inhibition when it comes to just saying stuff, which is why we're much better at doing roast comedy than any other type. But even when we're doing our improv, right, we can accept the premise of whatever scene we're in and run with it and just let things fall out of our mouths far easier, in my opinion, than the other people we work with. Now, it might just be the people we work with, but like even when we worked with Tegan, who was a stand-up comedian for a while in New York, and a couple of other stand-up comedians that we've dealt with, like me and you step up to a scene, accept the premise, and just let it fall out of our mouths and stay with the scene. They all had a problem with at some point questioning whether they should or should not say something. So I think that's one of the advantages we have is we can just, you know, we're not as bound by, will they like it? No, we just say it.
Right.
I think because we have more experience just saying shit.
Do you think that people like us can ever get a pass for saying things that are socially unacceptable? Or do you think that
no,
we need to be held to the same standard?
I do not believe that we should be held to the same standard at all. And I think it's really not appropriate that people hold us to a standard that even they themselves don't necessarily always meet, but they kind of hold us to a normie or a neurotypical world when we're not that. And even when they know we're not that, and even when they say they understand that we're not that, they still hold us to that fucking weird standard. Like, quite honestly, and I'm not going to blame autism for the way I talk, but straight up, if I want to tell somebody I don't think they did very well, and I'm going to say it in a matter-of-fact way, fucking accept that that's my opinion and move on. Like, just because I said you didn't do a good job doesn't mean you didn't, but I'm not going to word it in the way of like, well, in my opinion, no offense, just, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. No, I'm just going to say I didn't fucking like it. And just accept that I said I don't like it.
What if you made a joke that was some type of ism or ist?
One of the ist statements.
What if you made a sexist joke that didn't go over very well?
So
should you be canceled? Should you be?
No, I definitely don't.
Should the
agree with
pitchforks
that.
come out for you?
No, I definitely don't agree with that kind of stuff. And mostly, I will say that like one person believing something is one of the ists or isms, and somebody else won't necessarily think that. And honestly, to accuse somebody of being an ist or an ism of some type without knowing who they are as a person, I think is mislabeling them and being overly judgmental, which if you turn around and try to do that to that other person, mislabel them, misperceive them, they throw a fucking hissy fit about it.
Unless you're talking about Michael Moore. That guy's a piece of shit. I'm just kidding.
But it's interesting to me because like some people believe in responsible comedy, right? I personally do not believe in responsible comedy. And
you have to punch up, Nick.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up. It's like that improv group I auditioned for many years ago who said we really can't have you because we do clean comedy and we think it's lesser intelligence if somebody swears.
You know what happens when you do clean comedy?
You don't get hired.
You end up with Bill Cosby. Is that what you want? Do you want more Bill Cosbys out there? You take all the dirt off stage, and where does it end up?
Right.
It ends up in his living room in a cup full of Quaaludes. That's what happens.
So actually on that premise, right? Okay. We can probably on one hand name the famous clean comics. If we try to name off all of the famous, successful, not clean comics, there's a shit ton more of them, right?
Yeah.
So are those comics that are clean better because they don't swear or say inappropriate stuff? I mean, quite frankly, some of the most like well-known comedians who are stand-up, some of the most successful ones are ones who are not those people. I mean, some
Jerry
of them are.
Jerry Seinfeld's pretty clean.
He is. He's pretty clean and he's pretty successful. But I can now name 5 or 6 that are just as famous as him. Or
I've
just
heard
as
some
successful.
jokes that he said that are a little edgy, but for the most part, his jokes are not very edgy at all.
No, I mean, but he also
swear.
does a type of comedy that lends to that very well.
Yeah.
And like, if you take another Bill Burr, a guy you like a great deal, he's rather successful in his career. Yeah, I would say he's very successful in his career.
He just says whatever the fuck he wants.
Right, and he just says anything. I mean,
a lot of times he says stuff that even I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I mean, he takes some liberties, all right. Yeah. And I actually believe now that I know more about him as a person, because I've listened to some podcasts, I know some personal stuff about him. I agree with his stance that he should be allowed to say things that lean in certain directions more because of certain personal things about him. I.e., I think the man can make some black jokes because he's married to an African-American woman. I believe he can make those jokes more because he clearly is not racist. Although I did listen to a podcast at one point and somebody was describing as being a racist and somebody pointed that out, that he's married to an African-American woman and they've been married for a long time. And I think they have kids or something like that. I think so. And
yeah, you could marry a person of color and still be racist.
I don't think you can, just because of what racist means. That word by definition, you cannot be racist and be married to an African American person, or racist and be married
a white
to somebody
person
not
and
white.
marry somebody of a different race, and you could have racist views and like maybe think that. Or even if it's subconscious, you could think that like I'm better because I'm white or something.
So hold on.
You could still be in love with the person, but still feel superior to them.
I didn't say he didn't at times make statements. The statement is racist. I said he as a person is not racist.
No, but you could marry somebody and be in a relationship with somebody and love somebody, but still, part of you still feels superior to them because of your.
I don't
or if
know.
You could look down on them.
I don't know if you could have a successful relationship with somebody who looked down on you. I don't think that could happen.
I'm just saying that it's like the whole thing like, oh, I'm not racist. I have a black friend.
Well, I think that's a little bit different than what I'm saying. I mean, I see where you're going with it, but like, I think it's a little different.
I'm not racist. My girlfriend's black.
So he has spent a good number of years being married to this person.
Oh yeah.
And like they share a life together.
I don't think he's racist.
No, I don't either. It's just this person
arguing
trying
with
to make
you
that
about
comment.
the point. Like, I don't think that's a good explanation of why he's not racist. I just don't. You can use that as evidence, but I wouldn't say, oh, he's not racist because he's married to a black woman. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good enough answer.
I think it covers it enough. It's kind of like, so if, but to me, sexism or being a sexist is a little bit different in that regard. Like, I'm trying to separate those two words in this way, because I do believe that if a man is sexist and actually a sexist, right, believes that women are lesser to him, I believe he could be married to a woman. And I do believe that they could have potentially a decent relationship. I think that's happened many a times in history. Absolutely. But I think the racist part, I don't think it could work the same. I really just don't think that could work off the same way.
I don't know.
Well, same thing with like if somebody is, and I fucking hate the term homophobic just because phobic means fucking fear of, or irrational fear of. And anyway, but I don't think if somebody was like homophobic or against the LGBT community, I don't think they could have.
Imagine if somebody actually was homophobic. Wouldn't that be kind of funny?
It would actually. It would be.
They
hilarious.
see a pride parade marching through town and they just run away screaming in fear.
Right, like absolutely that. Irrational like panic attack just because they see a gay pride float. Yeah,
a good premise for a horror film. Somebody's like, they see a rainbow flag and they just break down into tears.
That would be like, to me, that would be the worst and best dark comedy ever made, because the person
Homophobia.
Right. But imagine trying to write that character and trying to make people like understand, relate, or have sympathy for a character who just breaks down into a horrible panic hysterical attack just because they see a gay
They have a
pride
scene
flag.
like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
They get the guy strapped in the movie theater, but they're making him watch like gay porn or something. It's like two guys having sex and he's like, no.
I'm sorry, but that really would be like a horrible dark comedy in my opinion. And I'm not saying I wouldn't watch it.
Homophobia coming to a theater near you.
But it's like, I don't think that person who was that, I don't think they could successfully have a relationship with somebody who was bi. Right. I don't think that could happen because they're already against, relatively the LGBT community. They already have certain views that are not applicable to that or not conducive to being able to have a relationship with somebody. But comics who make jokes, who make gay jokes and they have a sibling who is gay. Right. I think that can happen because I don't think they're necessarily homophobic in doing so, I think the statement that they're making, the statement itself, the joke is maybe that, but I don't think that person, that human being is that.
I think the gay jokes, like gay and lesbian jokes, it's at a point where like if you make a gay or a lesbian joke, people just kind of roll their eyes. But what you really can't joke about are the T's.
Yeah, that is a true statement. And I would like to mention that if a joke I'll go with a joke, even just for a setup of a joke, involves somebody of that community in any way, shape, or form, people immediately assume they're making fun of that, even if it has nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah.
I forgot who I was listening to, but some comedian was talking about it, how everybody mistook their joke from meaning that they were making fun of the homosexual relationship in the joke, but it had nothing to do with that at all. And like, sometimes people just get a little jitty about stuff and they don't actually pay attention to what the person's actually talking about, what they're actually making fun of or, bringing to light. If they're an observational comic, they're going to be talking about and giving context to a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just find that. Yeah.
So a lot of times people will get upset with a joke, but miss the point of the joke.
Yes, exactly.
So like a lot of times you could say something that sounds on its face like it's sexist or homophobic or racist or something. But if you actually pay attention to the joke, it's like the whole point of the joke is to make fun of that type of bigotry.
Right.
Kind of like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like Dave Chappelle did the whole black white supremacist thing.
Yes.
Right? Like, black white supremacists. Somebody might find that offensive, but the whole point was he was making fun of white supremacists. He was making fun of people, KKK type people.
Yeah.
And it was funny to have somebody who's black who was a white supremacist, which was hilarious.
Right.
But I could see somebody being offended by it.
Change it. Yeah.
But if you're offended by it, I feel like you're kind of missing the point of the whole joke is he's making fun of.
But that's the thing about self-righteous fucknuts. Like they don't care what it's actually about. They're listening for buzzwords. They're not actually trying to see the premise. They're not trying to see the context of it. They're not even listening to what the person's saying about it. They immediately just jump on a word and go, "You're one of those things. Oh, I hate you." Because they want to be offended. They want to make a stand for something. You know what? Make a stand for something that's real. And quite honestly, like, yes, there's a lot of people who get victimized, discriminated against, and treated like crap and bullied in the LGBT community. Absolutely. There's a lot of people in a lot of demographics that get treated like crap. And everybody just wants to talk about group after group of how they're treated like crap. They don't want to talk about in general, people treating each other shitty.
I was afraid. The first time that I made a joke about transgender people in sports.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to say it because I knew somebody would get pissed off about it. But the joke was...
you actually hesitated saying a joke?
Well, when it comes to that stuff...
I have never heard you hesitate to say a joke on an improv stage.
The joke was something along the lines of, I don't understand why all these conservatives or all these right-wing people keep complaining about transgender women in sports. They just need to shut their mouths. Just be quiet about it, because then we'll all get what we want, which is more male sports.
Okay.
Something like that.
So like, I've never, ever heard you say that you have ever held back a joke on an improv
I could
stage.
see somebody getting offended by that.
Dude,
because you're saying that transgender women are actually men. And like, it's not really, okay.
Right.
It's not really the joke.
Yeah, that's not the joke. But like, we used to do an uncensored improv show at a, formerly labeled LGBT friendly bar.
Yeah.
I wish I could word that a different way, but people.
That's actually how we met.
Yeah, it is actually
Nick,
at that bar.
Nick likes to carve holes in the stalls there.
Jesus Christ.
And I was curious one night. So
are you feeling nervous this episode? And that's why you're trying to roast me here? What the fuck?
I'll never forget my first blowjob at Bobby's.
Wow.
It did take me a while to get the taste out of my mouth.
Not the direction I thought you were going in, but I appreciate
it was a misdirection there on purpose.
That's good. That's good.
I'm glad that Justin stocks mouthwash near the bar. So,
wow, we don't even know if he does. Yeah, that mouthwash is called vodka. But yeah, so we used to perform there. And one thing I always thought was funny was because we touted ourselves at the time as being an uncensored comedy group, willing to talk about anything. And we were performing at LGBTQAA HSPO, friendly bar. And, fucking, I'm just going to call it what it was. It was a fucking gay bar. I knew it. I was introduced to the place as it being a gay bar with cool karaoke. But anyway, so we performed there for about a year and nobody really got offended by anything we said.
No.
I never heard anybody say, that joke crossed the line. I'm offended by it. How dare you? I mean, our first show there, people did one or two people did give the critique that maybe we shouldn't use as many abortion jokes as we did. But that was one show. And mostly it was me. Yes, I made some abortion jokes. But nobody really had an offense to it. And we said some fucking horrible shit. We said some very
was afraid to say certain things. I wrote
jokes.
Was
very afraid.
I wrote jokes for him when he did his late night show.
Yeah.
And one of them was the magazine pages being stuck together, that whole thing,
that
whole little speech about.
But that's where we met.
Kids.
You remember that?
Teenage boys with hiding porn magazines from their parents.
Yeah.
I had a whole speech about that, remember?
Right.
And he was afraid to say that one.
Right. Well, we had this conversation about that's how we met, remember?
Or
we technically met through Ian doing karaoke there, but
a joke he used to end the show with like doing a shot.
Yes.
Like everyone would do a drink
Yes.
or have a shot. And I would write him a joke. And there was one stupid joke. I don't remember exactly. It was like something like, it was a shot. It was like a toast to my friend, my transgender friend, Annie, or as I like to call her, Manny.
I'm sorry. It's fucking dumb. I love it. I love any dumb joke.
I'm like, you can't make trans jokes. And I just made like 3. So,
well, like I remember doing that show and like, I didn't actually understand why I was even there because like Ian apparently told Justin that he's got this funny friend who writes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so Ian asked me to come down one night when they were doing some meeting for it. Or
it
what
looks
they
like
were
a
gonna do.
retarded Robin Williams.
Yeah, exactly. I love Hawaiian shirts. And so I went down and I sat and I think I was sitting near you and Natalie was on that panel of people that were helping and whatnot. And the whole hour I was sitting there listening to you guys talk, it didn't sound like anybody had any fucking clue what they wanted to do. It was just like a shit ton of ideas that were being thrown out and none of them were solidified. Nobody agreed to any of them. And yet then he went
Well, some of the stuff we did do were things that I pushed for.
Well, yeah.
Some of the games we played.
Well, okay. And yet the rest of the show, like it was like he was trying to mimic a late night talk show, but didn't quite have the format of it.
Yeah.
And then like he would interview guests and they would come on, but when he would interview them, he didn't really have a topic per se. I mean, he did, but they wouldn't really go anywhere and they would just be bullshit and talking about drinking or fucking when that person would come down and hang out for karaoke. And that was always something I kind of had an issue with that show with. And actually that first night when I sat and listened to everybody talking about stuff, when me and Ian left, I was like, that ain't gonna last long, dude. And he was like, why not? And I was like, for one, because half the people who were sitting there were only like kind of involved, not really. They didn't really give a shit too much. And Ian asked me like, how important is it to make sure everybody's involved in what you're doing? And I said, well, if everybody's involved and everybody feels a part of it and they own some of it, it'll last long because everybody's focused on making it good. But if you have people kind of like halfway doing it, whatnot, then it'll fucking die. Because even you, talking about Justin, even you being the guy who really cared about it and really wanted to do it, you're going to lose steam at some point. And when you lose steam and when you start to doubt what you're doing, you got nobody there to kind of support you because everybody else is kind of halfway being involved. So, yeah. I mean, I thought it was going to die pretty quick. And it did. That's not me saying that I'm smart or I know best or any of that kind of shit. I just foresaw that it was going to fucking die off quick. Somebody listening to us might say the same thing. Yeah, you guys might be on your 4th episode, but yeah, it's not going to last very long.
Well, so.
We should probably get back on point.
Kind of circle it back a little bit.
Yeah, let's go back on point.
Do you think it's worth it for autistic people to get out there and perform, put themselves out there? What do you think are the potential benefits? Like, are there things that they can take away from performing to help them grow or maybe help some of their social deficits?
Yes. I actually think it's far more important for those of us on the spectrum to get involved in artistic ventures far more so than anybody else. I mean, it's beneficial for anybody to be able to express themselves, to be creative, to be involved in the arts. But I think for people like us, it's far more important because we live in our heads so much. And because we already feel socially isolated so much, I think it's very important for us to get out there and act and do improv and be stand-ups and be on a stage. I think it's very important. And some of the benefits is straight up because we already had that sense, that feeling of social disconnectedness. And because we already feel as if it's hard for us to express our emotions, and those are ways for us to express them more and actually come to terms with and understand how we're feeling more, because now we're given an outlet to express it with. And so I think it's far more important for us to do it than other people. I mean, because fucking normies, they get to walk down the street and fucking express feeling happy. Like, it's harder for us to do that. It's harder for us to express the nuances of different emotions more so than like the base 5. I know for me in particular, it's far easier for me to express frustration, irritability, and anger. It's far easier for me to express that than most other emotions.
I used to channel most of it through writing, whether it was writing poetry
I know,
or
you're a
writing
big
a
fan of
story,
texting.
writing
Yeah.
scripts. So I would channel it that way because I'm still not always great at it, at vocally expressing how I feel about things. So a lot of times I would write.
Yeah.
And then through writing, I would actually understand my own thoughts and feelings better. It's like I wrote it out, and now, okay, I think I understand better how I feel after I'd written it out.
Right.
And
I always like, I've written sketch comedy before, and I've written stuff with people. I find it far easier to be orally or verbally expressive opposed to, oh, you motherfucker. Just nobody else can see, but I said orally, and he immediately made the action as in like shoving a dick in your mouth. But I always find it harder
That's how he
to
orally
do
expresses himself.
written expression. Like I will ponder, and I will tool over, and I will like really work at a sketch. Writing it, I'll rewrite it 4 or 5 times before I present it to you for a sketch, just because I don't think it's very good. I don't think I expressed my opinion. I don't think I, did it very well, if you would say. But verbally, I don't doubt my ability to tell a story. I never doubt my ability to, convey something to somebody verbally. And that's kind of like when I decided and pitched the idea to everybody to be the host of our improv shows. That's one of the reasons why I did it, is because I have confidence in my belief and my ability to host something, to capture people's attention, keep them involved, keep the energy to a certain level so it doesn't drop too low. And I kind of filled in spaces in between games and stuff. But that's why I pitched that idea. I mean, it really had nothing to do with anything other than that. It was because I didn't feel like I was the best improv performer that we have, because I feel most of the time as if I'm very monotone and I'm very kind of flat emotionally or affect wise. And so I wanted to be a host, because that's me explaining things to people, explaining the games that we do, explaining the show and who we are. And I've always been told that I should be a professor because I'm much better at that and I can convey things in that way. So I just kind of took what people have told me I'm good at and kind of applied it to our improv show.
Yeah.
Kind of fit myself in that box.
I don't know if I can picture you as a professor, and I don't think that there's any colleges that are accredited who can give out degrees in child molestation.
Hey, as long as they're paying me, man. As long as they're paying me, I'll teach whatever. I don't need them to be accredited. No, like, I mean, even my partner, Nat, even Natalie tells me I should be a professor because of the way I talk to people at times. Because I'm matter-of-factly and I just kind of convey everything and I make sure all pieces of it are covered and all this other jazz. By the way, I have no idea what it takes to be a professor. I know what the education requirement is, but I don't actually know what a professor does other than fucking stands in front of a group of people and talks. I don't know. There's probably some grading
today
involved.
we're going to cover Freud. We're going to start with
Oral fixation.
Oh my God. Fuck, you're going to start with Freud, huh? All right. You tell the motherfucker you like psychology once and he makes
Because you
Freud
put a
jokes for
cigarette in
7
your
years.
mouth, so I thought of oral fixation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Didn't
if anybody
Freud
didn't
say
know,
that, like,
yes, I
everybody-
smoke cigarettes and I smoke during the show.
Didn't Freud say like everyone wants to fuck their mom or something like that?
Not exactly, but we're going to go with that for now because I'm not about to do like a fucking dissertation on that fucker right now. Yeah, we're just going to go with it, I guess.
I don't know as much about those guys as you do, but I did find Jung to be more interesting than Freud.
Oh, I actually do too. I find Jung to be far more interesting than Freud, but give credit where credit's due.
But he was a psychoanalyst, right?
Yeah, they're both psychoanalysts. If Freud hadn't been as popular as he was, things might have died. Like, psychology-wise, things might not have gotten to where they are. People might not have gotten inspired. Hold on. What? So everybody hears, some people just showed up to rehearse for our improv show right now, and I got to go let them in. So I'm going to leave you with Steve. Steve. What?
Well, do you want to call it quits?
Oh, yeah, might as well.
All right, so I got one joke for you before we stop recording.
Sorry, everybody. We're cutting it short.
Here's my joke
Okay.
to close out the show. This guy walks into a library and he says to the librarian, "Hey, do you have that book for guys with small dicks?" And she looks in the computer and she says, I don't think it's in yet. And he says, "Yeah, that's the one."
Wow. All right. So as always, when we finish a podcast, Steve tells a joke of some type. But once again, if you like what we talked about, if you don't like what we talked about, give a comment on any one of the services where you can. Make a comment of some type. If you got any questions for us whatsoever, if you want us to expound upon anything that we talked about, please drop a line, drop a question, and as well as make some suggestions for further podcast topics. And other than that,
if you eat ass, please leave a comment below.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we'll end with. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.